Welcome to the Rugby Unites fundraising event. We're supporting the South Africa Rugby Legends food distribution program to vulnerable communities in South Africa. My co-host is my former Bath, England, British and Irish Lions hooker, Lee Mears. Welcome, Lee.
Hi, Vic. Thank you so much for inviting me to be part of this initiative. So what inspired you to raise £50,000 for Rugby Unite?
I was inspired after reading an article about the current South Africa captain, Siya Kolisi, growing up in Africa, starving as a child. That resonated with my own upbringing in Ajegunle, Lagos's most densely populated slum, with around 2 million people living together, shoulder to shoulder, in tiny precarious shacks, assembled from corrugated iron or wood crates or whatever people could find to nail together. It was typical African living, the same as you might find in any village or shanty town across the continent. Even though people were poor, their doors were always open. This is one thing I love most about Africa, that no matter how little people have, everything is shared. This sense of community is what resonated with me. Let's take a look at the South African rugby community helping.
SALA's Rugby Unites campaign continues to roll out its Big Sunday shop, bringing together former and current SA rugby players. This time it was the turn of the Cheetahs in Bloemfontein.
We're just collaborating with the Cheetahs. They accepted our challenge. We're busy with the Rugby Unite campaign. We've got a few legends here, Nas Botha, John Smith and all of them. And it's great to see that the rugby community is actually thinking about the people that actually need a lot of food or people that's struggling on the streets and stuff.
Ja, ek dink is die Rugby Legends met Gavin Bridges as die president het nog altyd verskillende mense se lewens gemaak, of dit 'n spelers is, of iemand wat beseer is, of dit nou iemand is wat in nood verkeer, en nou in die geval waar mense honger is met die COVID, en ek dink dit is nog altyd dit gegaan oor om 'n verskil te maak, en ek dink dit is waaroor dit gaan. Dit is baie belangrik dat elkeen in die land wat kan met 'n verskil maak aan iemand wat behoeftig is.
Yeah, I think it's a great initiative. I think we've come together with the Be the Difference Foundation to provide people that's in need, that's really struggling with hunger at the moment through these difficult times. So great to make a difference, and I think like we've seen with so many great sportsmen getting involved with initiatives like this, so for us it's great to be involved today.
And more important, our job is just to make sure that we get as much food outside into packets, and then they're going to deliver. So for a lot of people in Bloemfontein, this is a fantastic opportunity to look at their kids and say, okay, we're eating well tonight.
Feeding people is not a charity, it's a justice, because everyone has a right to eat at least 2 meals a day or 1 meal a day. You have to have something to sustain you. And the program's just been incredible, and you know, it's our first time that we've run it in Bloemfontein, and the support has been amazing.
We've got a great lineup for you tonight with the likes of John Schmidt, Matt Stevens, Jean de Villiers, Jeremy Gusker, Ugo Monya, Francois Lowe and Brian Habana. Victor, how can people get involved with the auction?
We've got some great items. If you want to bid, please go to the website link on the left of your screen. Donations on the website are also welcome. Items include lot number 6, a VIP chef's table, a 5-course meal for 6 people at Ramsey's Savoy Grill. Lot 50, the Kenya experience, an unforgettable 12-night holiday, safari, beach in outstanding resorts. Lot 52, a Christmas lunch aboard the Northern Belle luxury train, which includes a 7-course lunch with champagne and wine. Lee, over to you to introduce our first player.
Well, I'd like to introduce my fellow Bath prop, South African born, with 44 caps for England and appearances in both the 2007 and 11 World Cups. He toured with the British and Irish Lions in 2005 to New Zealand and 2013 to Australia.
Our second player is a former South African captain an inspirational hooker who memorably led his side to the sport's biggest prize at the 2007 World Cup in France. In 2009, he led the Springboks to a 2-1 series victory over the British and Irish Lions, retired from his incredible career after the 2011 Rugby World Cup, being the most capped South African player ever with 111 appearances. Let's welcome John Smith and Matthew John Hamilton Stevens. Hi, guys.
How's it going, everyone?
Hello, everyone. Great to be here.
Hey, Mirzy.
How you doing, gents?
Hi. Good to see you all. Thanks for coming. John, we saw you on the video talking about the food program. What impact has the work of Rugby Unites had in South Africa?
Vic, so Rugby Unites is something that's got started by SA Rugby Legends as President Gavin Vreeges. We obviously during lockdown we had the world had some serious challenges here in South Africa. Unemployment was already steep before we even got into lockdown, and poverty and people feeling hungry is a big issue. So it started really just with a Sunday afternoon getting together, doing some shopping at the local supermarket, distributing those bags to the corners of the streets where people were sort of sitting hungry, begging for food. And it turned into a Rugby Unites program that started, I guess, getting all the ex-rugby players together from all the different regions, moving it away from just being held in Johannesburg, but into every single region, into the Cape, into the Eastern Cape, into Natal, and all over the country. And we just got this amazing support from all the players. The other thing that was so cool was, for the first time, it was something that the ex-players and the current players did. So the current players, who were also in lockdown, nothing much to do, they got involved, and it was sort of like a handing over of the baton in terms of what SA Rugby Legends is and the good that it does for the community, and showing the youngsters sort of what their sort of responsibility will be. But we ended up, I think our last one was done in Pretoria after the first bit of live rugby that we were able to see a month ago. And we collected 1,000 food parcels and distributed them between different charities that had the ability to distribute them to those who needed them most. But the amazing feeling that it gave, I guess, current and ex-players, the ability of making a difference to the people that have been tuning into the telly, watching us for all those years, and being fans. It was a way for current players and ex-players to be able to give something back from an amazing career that they've been able to have here in South Africa with fans and supporters that have kept on supporting us. So a huge amount of goodwill. I loved the generosity. I loved the fact that people loved this as an opportunity with these work permits that we were allowed to get. It was almost like our social excitement for the week was getting together at a supermarket to go shopping for food parcels, albeit with masks and inhaling sanitizer through every single pore in your body. It was the most amazing experience for 2 or 3 hours on a Sunday afternoon.
That sounds amazing. I love the way sport can sort of bring communities together. And for Matt, you had, hopefully you're going to say the pinnacle of your career was playing with me at Bath, but because we're on the theme of Lions, you were able to play in the 2005 Lions in New Zealand under Clive Woodward. What was your highlighting memory?
Well, it was an incredible experience for me, because I got thrown in, and I'll talk a little bit later about how I got thrown into the Australian tour, but very much as an outlier, young player, had a decent autumn internationals, but obviously Clive Woodward, Andy Robinson had seen something in me, and I got thrown in with the big dogs, as it were, and left to go and play in probably the toughest place to tour in the world, New Zealand. Just an incredible opportunity to play with the best in British rugby. Legends of the game, from O'Driscoll to Delalio, these guys that you only saw on the TV until that point, or played against briefly in a premiership maybe. And so that tour, although very disappointing for the Lions, it was my foray into a different class of rugby, and it really developed me as a player. And when you're thrown into a competitive environment like that, it's a sink or swim scenario. And obviously, just to be able to play in those midweek games, and I played all of them, and we managed to win all of them. I think that was one of the highlights of the tour for us, was the development of those players. And I definitely think my career went in an amazing trajectory after that. So I've got a huge amount of thankfulness to Clive and to Andy for thinking of a young player like me and putting me into that role. It is a really special club. It's one of the oldest touring sides, but it's probably the most famous touring side, and it is the touring side that is still doing those old traditional tours, and long may it continue. I think it's an integral part of rugby union, and I'm very, very excited and hopeful that we get to see it happen here next year.
Well, the record books say that you were involved in 2005, then 2013. Obviously, I was on the 2009, and you had a part in that. You helped me be the social secretary and organise most of the trips in South Africa. But that 2013 to Australia, under a different coach, how did they differ?
Yeah, I think Clive and Gats, both incredible coaches. But I think where you had a Clive Woodward, who's very much a director of rugby, very much of the Malcolm Gladwell 10 hours route. Every little detail is thought about. He brought everything he'd done with England to the British Lions, put it on a fast track over a short period of time, and had a huge coaching staff complement, and an absolutely massive squad. Is probably the reason I went on the tour. But that approach, and who's to say if we would have won a test or not, or been more successful if we had done it another way. I think that New Zealand side at the time was imperious, but it definitely the way they approached PR. I think they had Alistair Campbell. I know they had Alistair Campbell, who was Tony Blair's previous spin doctor on the tour, and that rubbed people up the wrong way. They went to New Zealand trying to win hearts and minds, and in New Zealand, you're never going to win hearts and minds. They are always going to be completely behind. I remember being in a barber and in Auckland, and being basically coached on how to scrum by the hairdresser, who was talking me through exactly what I needed to do to get the upper hand against the All Blacks. He caveated at the end that never get the upper hand and had no chance, and you should probably go home now, mate. So it was this. It's one of those relentless experiences that it's a fight or flight, and I loved every moment of it. I think the difference between, just going back to Clive and Gats, is I think Gats approached the tour a bit more pragmatically, in the sense that it's not a 4-year run-up. It's not a World Cup. It's how quickly can I get the best players in the British Isles to be prepared to go on a tour together from four different countries that don't really like each other when they're playing each other. And it's amazing how how that alchemy happens when the teams come together. You know, the players actually develop bonds, that develop friendships that last a lifetime. But I think Gats really understood that in a way that perhaps Clive did, and so it was almost back to the old school. You know, there wasn't a huge amount of training. Barbarian, you know, minus a bit of the drinking. You know, it was get together, form a bond and a friendship as quickly as possible. We didn't have our own hotel rooms. We shared hotel rooms. I mean, boo-hoo, but we shared hotel rooms. You developed this bond. There was singing. There was that old school back of the bus, everyone sings, and culture as quickly as you possibly can, because you've got absolutely no time to get it right. And I think he's been a very good coordinator, orchestrator of that culture. Yeah,
Matt, so it's a completely different tour then to Clive's regimental stuff. I think that's what you're saying.
Clive is the ultimate tactician, general strategist, and Gats approaches in a kind of more robust, old school way. And that's not to say that he isn't an extremely good technical coach. There's no doubt that he is, but I think he understood that you need to embrace what the line is naturally a throwback to the 19th century, where people were traveling over in ships and spent 2 months with each other, got there, spent 6 months touring, and then got another 2-month ship ride back to Blighty. So I think that's what Gats really got, and I enjoyed both tours. Don't get me wrong, but there was something special about Australia for me, because it was also something I was thrown into completely. I was sat on a train with my wife, India at the time, and we were catching the train back from Heathrow Airport to Bath, where Lee and I had a restaurant called Jika Jika. And getting back there to sort things out at the restaurant, and I had retired from international rugby, and Gats phones me up in his kind of New Zealand drawl, mate, do you think you could play for the Lions again? And I was like, yes. Even though I'd retired from international rugby, you don't say no to that question. So I think I was brought in as an older player, an old head, but also someone who could play both sides of the scrum, get stuck in on the field, and obviously get stuck in off the field. Obviously not too much.
Fantastic, mate. John, I mean, you captained South Africa in 2009, winning series against the Lions. I mean, a lot of the South African squad would not have experienced an incoming Lions tour and what that's like. I mean, what was it like for you?
First of all, I have to say, Matt, your expertise in diplomacy supersedes none that I've heard before, both on comparing coaches and on your humility around your value off the field. There's a reason they call you the connoisseur, and I'm sure Miezi can agree, have never had a bad what's the word I should say? I've never had a bad evening with Matt Stevens, the connoisseur, in the history of our relationship, and I'm pretty confident that will remain until the day we pass on. So if I was the coach, I would have chosen you purely on your off-the-field value, even though your ability around the field is quite substantial.
Actually, John, what was it like playing against Matt on the international stage?
There is a fantastic story about that. That's been sadly overly documented around a test between England and South Africa.
Overplayed.
Very overplayed. But it was, I mean, I knew Matt briefly when he was a junior in Durban at the Sharks. And then got to know Matt actually more around the visits to Bath when Butchie was playing there. Hey Matt, that's probably where we started to get to know each other. But our love affair really started at Saracens in the Front Row Club. My first night at the club, there was the mandatory once a month was it Front Row evening? And it was like no other Front Row evening I'd ever experienced.
What it was called. You had to be over a certain weight to join in.
Thankfully,
going back to the Lions. Let's go back to 2009 Lions winning series. I mean, what was that like?
But it would be so fun to talk about the other stuff.
The other stuff would require some age restriction, especially the front row nights. But Vic, I was I was the only guy who'd had any experience. In 1997, I played one game, and I say one game, probably 9 minutes for the Natal Sharks against the British Irish Lions, and I got my first real taste around what this special experience was like. And Matt's right. This is the most famous team that tours in the world, and it's the last of the old school type of rugby, which I think we all miss to a degree. It's all become so fast and so much of it, and we just don't get a chance to make meaningful relationships after we've smashed each other up for 80 minutes. And the Lions Tour is one of those last things those last opportunities you can do so. So in 2009, we were 2 years after a World Cup win, and it had a sort of a iffy 2008, but we'd managed to get all of our players back, and injuries were pretty good, so we had a strong squad. And there was the Lions was the only reason why that team of 2007 came back from overseas and got back together and stayed together, and purely because it's as big a motivator as any team would have to win a World Cup. And the reason why it's so important, and I know it's important to the blokes who play for the British Irish Lions, but there's some guys that'll have amazing careers in Australia, New Zealand, South Africa that will never get the opportunity to play against the Lions. They'll watch it go by, or they'll be injured, or something can happen, and it's 12 years apart. And I think that's really why there's such a massive emphasis on it. The other thing is, it brings an intensity around the hype of it that is unrivaled. I mean, I felt as nervous before that first test in Durban, Miezi, as I did before the final in 2007. And that, I think, really tells the story around how important a Lions series is. And to us, we were the group that had been tasked with fighting back for the honour of rugby, because we had to painfully watch Jeremy Guscott's drop kick go over in 97, Dawson dummy Gary Teichmann to score in the corner. These things, this is worse than watching it as a 9-year-old without your parents' permission, and then never ever wanting to go near a drain ever again. I mean, these are real nightmares, and our responsibility was to try and rectify this. And so the pressure is immense.
I did
that. So it was, I reckon, some of the best times that we've had as a team, and I'd love, and it would never be my privilege, but I'd love to experience or understand the experience that the British and Irish Lions, these guys that smash each other up in the Six Nations and play against each other at club level, that have to get together so quickly and become teammates and form that bond. And that for me is so intriguing. But what a privilege to have been able to play them twice and sneak through in 2009.
Yeah, that was a fantastic series. I mean, I was there taking people on tour, so I really did enjoy South Africa. But what advice would you give to the current squad who is sort of looking ahead to next year?
Look, it's I was actually asked this question last week when they launched Castle Lager as the sort of sponsor of the series here in South Africa, which I'm sure will make many people happy. Biggest train smash of 2009, Victor, which I'm sure you can attest to, was that they actually ran out of beer that night in Durban after the first test.
Wow.
It's the first time Durban's ever been drunk dry, ever. But the advice to these guys would be,
because it was the whole town, John. It wasn't just the stadium, right?
The whole town. And you couldn't get, you got a Billy's, Crowded House, no matter where you went, every single pub in Durban was dry. So, I mean, that can cause all sorts of pandemonium in South Africa, let me tell you. But the advice would probably be, well, was or is to enjoy the moments. I mean, I think about, I mean, I thought about the Lions, and obviously as captain there was a huge responsibility, and so there, like I did things a little differently. I made all the little moments count, because it's such a privilege to be in that squad and play one game or 1 minute, to be part of a series, and so everything's got to count. So I had these special caps made, so the green, but instead of green and gold, they had sort of red ebbing for to notify, like to make it memorable for the Lions series. So you got capped, so it was like a different type of Springbok cap, and I did pull a little trick on the captain in the first Test match, and there was all this talk about, and I don't know if it was made up, because South Africans are very good at making up stories just to be cross with people, even if it isn't true. But I was told that they chose a captain that was taller so that he could look down on the Springbok captain, and so I thought, okay, well, I've got to try and negate this somehow. So I got this plan together, and the coin toss is quite close to the game, so it was a bit tricky. But so I went out, got into my kit, warmed up a little bit early, came in a little bit earlier, got straight back into my number ones. But like with everything, with this cap with the red beading, I had a rule book in my right hand. I had a scar. I was like dressed to the absolute nines, and I made sure that I got there early so that when Paul arrived, he would like literally crap himself and go, "Have I missed something here?" Because the first thing he did was look to the manager and go, like, he was in his shorts and his t-shirt, rushing out from warm-up, and I was standing there, fully dressed in number ones, holding a rule book, waiting for him. So I still, I try and tell as many people as possible that's the only reason we won that first Test. I truly believe that.
That and the scrum, honestly. Oh, boys,
brilliant.
I could talk about this all day, but we're going to have to cut you off. Thank you so much, John and Matt, for joining us at Rugby Unite's Food Distribution Programme fundraising event.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Thanks for what you guys are doing. I appreciate it.
Keep up the good work.
We've reached out to some of our rugby mates to share their favourite rugby moments. Let's take a look at our first player.
Hello, my name's Mark Regan, and my favourite rugby memory of all time would be captaining the Barbarians 2007 against the world champions South Africa. I played South Africa 4 times that year, and this is obviously going to be the 5th, and to be asked to be captain of the Barbarians, having seen the team that Barbarians was putting out, I thought I've got to captain this side. I've got to go and play. But I was told that I can't play by the PRL, and my club said I wasn't allowed to play. But having seen the team and being asked to captain the Barbarians is a true, obviously he's legendary, I was asked to do that. I just disappeared, went AWOL for a week, and there was uproar, and I knew I was gonna pick up a fine when I eventually got back to Bristol. But anyway, went on and played, and we won, and won quite convincingly. So the 5th time against South Africa, and we won like 25-6, I think it was, and obviously the jubilation and entertainment after that, some great times with some great players that played with and against, and to captain the Barbarians was the best. And then obviously the memorable part is when I eventually went back to my rugby club, and they said, "Mark, we want to have a talk with you." So I went to the CEO's office, sat in the office. At the time it was Dave White. He said, "Mark, we've got to find you." He said, "Mark, first off, how many sugars do you want in your cup of tea? And do you want it white as well?" So I thought, "Yes, thank you very much." And he said, "Look, mate, well done on the weekend, but now go out and play for Bristol, and we won't be bothered to fine you, but we are very proud of you, and well done." That's my best memory.
We are here to fundraise for Rugby Unite's food distribution programme. The auction is available at www.rugbyunites.com. You can see the link on the left of your screen. You can also make a donation on the website. Some of the great items are Lot 45, Christmas drinks with 2 hookers and a prop. You've just seen Ronnie Regan on the screen. He'll be joining Vic and I. Lot 48 is a cookery course for 2 at the Michelin-star restaurant Salt. Lot 54, South African Mantis Collection Stay, a 6-night luxurious holiday taking you to Cape Town, Franschhoek, in the Winelands, and 2-night stay in the safari world-renowned Shamwari Private Game Reserve.
Here's a former rugby Welsh legend, Ian Goff, sharing his favourite rugby moments.
Hi, my name is Ian Goff, ex-Wales and Ospreys. My favourite rugby memory goes back to 2008. I got dropped from the Welsh national team after we lost to Fiji in the World Cup, sending us crashing out. 2008, under new coach Warren Gatland, we started the tournament against England, which we haven't beaten in 17 years. We were very much unfancied. We went on to win that game in the second half with a really strong display and go on to win that 2008 Grand Slam. The best thing about that was it was my 50th cap on the final game against France in the Millennium Stadium. And I got to lead out Ray Gravel, who was a legend, Welsh guy, centre, played for the Scarlets, Wales and the Lions, and lead out his daughters a year after he passed away, unfortunately. And we took the trophy, won the Grand Slam, and played every game. And it was just a great memory, having been dropped, having witnessed the lows of being dumped out of the World Cup the year before, and then to bounce back and do something truly remarkable was an absolute fantastic day for me and my family and friends.
Over to you, Lee, for our next interview.
Retired from rugby with 76 international caps for South Africa, finishing his career last November after beating England in the final of the Rugby World Cup in Japan to lift the Webb Ellis Trophy. Here is a player memory from our next guest.
Hi, my name is Francois Lowe, and my favourite rugby moment is winning the World Cup.
Welcome to Francois Lowe.
Hi, Francois.
Hi, Victor. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm well, good. Thanks. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, pleasure. Good to be here. Good to be with the boys again. Well, sort of.
Well, you're going to love it today, Flo, because we are going to be talking about the 2019 World Cup. Just talk to me, as you went into that competition in Japan, what was the mood in the camp and how did it build throughout the tournament for South Africa?
Yeah, a story I've told a few times now, but no, I mean, essentially, I think it all goes back to 2016, 2017, when we really had two pretty dismal years in South African rugby history in terms of performance. The sort of expectancy on us to perform at a certain level and not quite achieving those results. So, going into 2019. Fresh setup, only been together sort of with Rassie from 2018 when he took over. A decent amount of confidence considering some of the victories we got prior to that, but essentially a mammoth task ahead of us, in going to the World Cup in Japan and what we set out to achieve. We were confident that we had the ability to do it, but to pull it off was going to be another thing altogether. And there was a lot of I suppose apprehension going into that tournament, excitement as well, and really just I suppose we had to get the monkey off our back with that warm-up game against Japan, which was exciting. But that was really the starting block for us, going into that campaign.
I mean, for me, I'm watching from the outside. 1995, growing up, that the impact that South Africa had. Winning the World Cup on the whole country. What did it mean to the whole country winning this one?
Yeah, I think it's difficult for us to directly compare eras. 95 was really significant. For us as South Africans, it was really a mark of a turning point in our country. Considering our past and what happened there, and rugby was really seen as a symbol of hope. Something that everyone could grasp onto, regardless of what you did day to day, regardless of who you are, and regardless of your skin color. Importantly in South Africa, and that really marked a big moment, a big occasion for us to step forward and where we were trying to get to. And then again, to win in 2007, again a different era, different objectives, but a huge symbol of hope. But just this, this last year, 2019, and considering where our country's been the last 2 decades, we really needed something, for the people to grasp onto. And I'm not just saying that from a player's perspective. I too want to grasp onto something, and we do all find hope in success in different elements. So it was huge for us. It was a massive privilege to have been a part of that squad. Have been on that road to that victory. And we were kind of in a bit of a bubble there, I suppose, for 9 weeks. Not really seeing what's going on at home. But I tell you that week we spent in South Africa post the final. The trophy tour we did, just seeing the faces, seeing the people out there, seeing the excitement, that little bit of hope that that we gave them in whatever form was truly a humbling experience and feeling.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to have been in the '95 World Cup, which was obviously in South Africa, immense. Went to the final, and afterwards, out in the streets, the way everyone mixed in, the blacks, the whites, the Afrikaans, the whole community all sort of got together. We're partying on the streets in Johannesburg. It was just such a unifying effect. And, to be there, it's just something that I remember very, very vividly. It was an absolutely outstanding tournament. And the whole air in South Africa and the way that victory lifted the whole country, that was immense.
Yeah, Victor, I'd actually love to say that I remember it as clearly as you do. I was 11 at the time. I've got some cool memories, but probably not so much on the party side.
No, I remember '95 in terms of you mentioned the party side. I think one error that we made. After the victory against Australia in the quarterfinals, Jack Rowell took the entire squad to Sun City between the quarters and the semis. And that was amateur days.
Brilliant.
It all kicked off. We went on a 3-day bender, and we were sort of behind the scenes partying with all the staff at the Sun City Resort. Got back to face John Aloma in the semi-finals.
Oh.
And
we know what happened there.
I mean, for me, it's awesome how sport is bigger. It brings a nation together. It's amazing. And obviously, all the World Cups have generally been hosted in the home nations. This was the first one that was outside of the big sort of 5 or 6, and it was held in Japan. I mean, what kind of an experience was that like, Francois?
Yeah, I think the game of rugby has been calling out for that, for that expansion. As Victor alluded to, the game has only been professional for a really short amount of time, all things considered. And really just been sort of kept within the top tier nations. So to be, for the World Cup to be hosted in the so-called, and I say that in inverted commas, second tier nation, and to go to somewhere so unique as Japan, I think it was, first of all, an amazing experience, but most importantly, just so exciting for the game. Japan put themselves on the map, getting a certain victory a few years ago. But all things said, what really makes a tier 1 nation? Is it making the playoffs in a World Cup? Does that qualify you? And that's essentially what Japan did. And whether hosting the World Cup there gave them that extra boost. They are a class outfit. They're a quality outfit. I've been fortunate enough to play against them 3 times. And they've really put themselves out there as a team to be reckoned with. Just seeing the Japanese people out and about enjoying the game of rugby, everything that goes on with it, off the field, as from a spectator perspective, was awesome to see. I think rugby has been crying out for expansion, global expansion, and I think that was just a taste of it. So hopefully there's more to come, more nations to follow. Terrible how COVID's put everything on the back foot now, especially sport. Hopefully that doesn't slow things down too much, and we get those, those smaller nations, those smaller countries interested in, and onto a similar playing field as the current tier 1 nations.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about the Japan experience. So we talk about the Japan experience. I mean, What sort of things did you guys get up to in between the games? What part of Japan did you see?
I think that was the beauty of it, that we actually got to explore all of Japan. Japan obviously have a decent western side. You go to Tokyo, there's the same high street stores as there is here in London. But we also spent a lot of time in the remote sort of countryside of Japan, quite far south. Zero English being spoken. We had translators with us all the time, everywhere we went, restaurants, cafes, just booking cabs. And we really got a good taste of the Japanese culture, which was so foreign to me, and so amazing to experience, so amazing to see. I think it's sort of opened my eyes a bit to a certain extent. You can get quite trapped in your own world, your own bubble with social media, with TV, what's on, what's about. But there's on the other side of the world, there's another nation, there's another people living a very, very, very different type of lifestyle, different foods, different customs, which was just awesome to see, awesome to experience that. The Japanese were very welcoming. They love their beer, so we really mingled with them quite nicely in that regard. But it was just fascinating to see. Seeing a live volcano. That was definitely a highlight for me. I don't know why, but it was. And we did quite a bit of the touristy stuff. Went to see how they made samurai swords, and the tradition there with the ancient warriors. Which was a great experience. The different styles of food, as I said. The little indoor barbecues that you have at the table, just doing your meat there. That was awesome. It was just an unbelievable cultural experience on top of experiencing a World Cup, which is fantastic in its own.
Well, like me, with the grey hair, now you've retired, Francois, these are the trips. The more global it gets, the better countries you get to see. So the more the World Cup travels, the better it is. And being an Englishman, I can't help not mention the fact that the next Lions is down in South Africa, probably one of the best places to tour. What do you think is going to happen? It's going to be a really exciting tour. Where's your money?
Well, I think first of all, Lee, what I'm really excited about is I'm going on tour, but not as a player, as a fan. Something I've been looking forward to for a long time. I'm going to be in the stands with a couple of pints, telling the players what to do, when to pass, when to kick, telling the refs how rubbish they are. No, only kidding, refs. And, just enjoying the game for what it is. So super excited to head down to South Africa and, to go and experience the Lions tour. Where's my money on? Who's my money on? I'm drawing this out. I shouldn't be. My money's on South Africa. But no, in saying that, playing against Wales in the quarterfinal, playing against, England in the final, super tough games. Obviously the final was a great score, but as players, we don't always look at the score. We look at how the points were achieved and turning points in the game. And score's not always a true reflection of the quality of a side or the performance of a side. So, a lot of guys are putting their hands up at the moment in the Premiership just now. Post COVID outbreak, the short spill of Prem games we had. Exeter, the way that they performed, winning the Champions Cup, the Prem there, obviously they won the Prem. That's just English rugby here. The Welsh rugby is just as strong. A few of the Scots putting their hands up there. Ireland have some solid players. It's going to be an awesome Lions squad, no doubt. Just thinking back on the last tour, the pressures that those guys are on, the amount of games they have to play, the midweek games. I think that's where the challenge lies: is finding that balance, finding the size, the correct size and mixture of a squad, and when to push certain players. It is a heavy schedule, but that's what makes it exciting. I do think it's going to be solid, hard, good old Test rugby, which we saw the last time in 2009, which was an exciting series as well. I'm not expecting much different this time. It's going to be closely competed, but I'm going to have to put my money on South Africa. and I'm going to be there as a fan. I just had to say that again. I'm very excited.
Well, thank you, Francois, for joining us today and supporting the Rugby Unites initiative. It's been great chatting with you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, cheers, Victor. Good to chat to you guys.
Cheers, Flo.
See you later.
Bye.
Coming up next, a player memory.
Rugby Unite food program. It's a great cause. Well done, Victor. One of my fondest memories is winning my first cap at Twickenham. My parents had flown in from Lagos and I had family members coming to watch. As I went out to warm up, I could see 20 people in one of the boxes waving their napkins, lunch napkins, and shouting my name. That was probably one of my happiest memories in rugby.
Exciting auction items are available at www.RugbyUnites.com. The link's on the left of your screen. You can also make a donation on the website. Some great items include Lot 33, a limited edition Wouter Dupree print of the 2019 Rugby World Champs. Lot 28, South Africa 2021, eve of the first Test match dinner at the Four Seasons Hotel in Johannesburg. And Lot 24, Come Dine With Me, hosted by Victor Ubogu himself.
Another player memory for you.
Hi, I'm David Campese, and one of my favourite moments of rugby was the World Cup 91 beating England. It's always great to beat the enemy, but I was very fortunate to play many years, many games, and the friends that I've made over the years are probably the most important. Even Victor, believe it or not, even though I never saw him on the paddock. Did you play Victor? But anyway, all the best. Ciao.
Our next guest amassed 124 caps for the Springboks. He became the fourth South African to reach 100 caps after Percy Montgomery, John Smith, and Victor Matfield. He played in 3 World Cups, winning in 2007. He also won two Super Rugby titles, a Tri-Nations, and 2 European Cups. He is regarded as one of the most lethal wingers in the game, having taken the Springboks' all-time try-scoring record, as well as equaling John Olomu's record of 15 tries in World Cups.
And a friend of mine, former teammate, although I never get to see much of him, he was on the wing, I was grunting up front, but former England Harlequin, England Sevens and British and Irish Lions player, known also for his blistering pace on the pitch, an outspoken, popular rugby pundit, sharp wit, sharp dress, I'm not so sure. But 14 caps for England, played for British and Irish Lions in 2009 in South Africa.
Let's welcome Ugo Monye and Brian Habana. Hi, guys. Thanks for joining us.
Hello, gentlemen.
You well?
Yeah. Yep, all good. All good, thanks. And you? You all good?
Yeah, not too bad. It's good to see Mersey with a drink in his hand, so some things never change, I guess.
Brian, I enjoyed watching you score so many tries over the years. It must be difficult to pick your favourite. Can you give us a top rugby moment?
Sure, but gentlemen, it's absolutely brilliant to be speaking to you all. I think the joys of rugby, and I think much like all of us, you become extremely grateful, particularly when you do retire, for the memories that you get to take with you into the next phase of life. I'm extremely grateful and privileged to have had so many phenomenal memories from my rugby career. But I think for me, and I tell everyone this, when they ask what was the best moment, lifting a World Cup, scoring tries against the All Blacks, representing your country at the pinnacle. But I think for me, it was actually getting to represent the Springboks for the first time back in 2004 as a 21-year-old. I think we all had this dream of what it's like to become a professional rugby player. I got inspired in '95 by that incredibly unifying moment, when Nelson Mandela handed Francois Pienaar that cup called Bull, and 12 years on, winning a World Cup was great, but 2 years before that, being able to represent my country, score a try with my first touch of the ball in international rugby against the then world champions England at the home of rugby Twickenham was pretty special and a pretty decent way to start out my career. And it was a moment that sort of made me want to never let that opportunity go. It made me realize that I don't just want to be a 1 year wonder, a flash in the pan. I want to do this 10, 20, 50 times, potentially become the first player of color to do it 100 times. And that first moment for me just laid the foundation for where I went, and the privilege and honor it was to represent my country.
Oh my God, the Lions heading back to South Africa. Was it really 12 years ago? Oh, Ugo, we were both selected for that tour to South Africa in 2009. A great tour it was, but what's your lasting memory?
A little bit like what Brian's just talking about. I think we're also fortunate, privileged to be able to do the things that we love and call it work when it never ever felt like work. It was a passion and an honour and a privilege. And I think for everyone, especially during these times, to see rugby players still able to apply their trade and listen to Eddie Jones the last couple of weeks, he says that he wants to put smiles on people's faces. That's where the lines are blurred between sports and entertainment. As much as you want to go out and win, but people pay good money to be entertained. It was a privilege to play for my country. It was an even greater one to play for the British and Irish Lions. It's the most exclusive club in world rugby. And I think as a young Englishman growing up, all I ever wanted to do was play for my club. And you play for your club, you want to play for England, you speak to any successful sportsman or woman, they have an insatiable thirst for success. So the moment you do something once, and Brian just touched on it, it's not enough. It's not like, oh, I'm glad I've done that. I can chill out. You want more. You want more. It's, it's likened to, it becomes an addiction. So in 2009, to get that call up, it was really significant for myself, not just because of what the jersey is and what it means and who you're representing, but for everyone that played in that jersey before you. And Mearsy, you know exactly what it looks like. To walk into a change room, above every change room, you had a plaque of all the legends that played in that position. And it was an incredible reminder of the prestige, the history, and the magnitude of who and what you're representing. So to do that, to go to South Africa, one of my favourite countries in the world, and for anyone wanting to get into rugby, you've got to go to South Africa as part of your rugby education, because you grow up pretty fast. And to go down there to play against the world champions, it was the ultimate test. It was a test we came up short, but as an experience, of course, it's something I'll never forget.
Brian, you were involved in that tour as well, and you were reigning sort of world champions. What did it mean from a Southern Hemisphere side? Is it as big in the Southern Hemisphere as the Lions is in the Northern Hemisphere?
It's bigger, Lee. The reason is that if you come from South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, you only get a one in a career opportunity to do that. There's some test centurions that have never got the fortune and privilege of playing against the Lions because they started their career at the end of the previous tour and finished before the next one came. So, for us in the Southern Hemisphere, yes, World Cups are great, but you get to do that every 4 years. When you're playing and you got an opportunity to play against the Lions, it's not only a childhood dream, but it's something that is so rare that you really try and make sure that not only are you at your best, but that you making yourself available to do that. And I know there's quite a few South Africans. It's now the third time since the game has become professional that South Africa will be world champions going into the series. I think there's a bit of added spice in the fact that Warren Gatland is vying to become the first Lions coach to not lose a series against any of the Southern Hemisphere nations. So that coupled with the fact that the Springboks are the world champions, I think is going to add a little bit of spice. I think everyone is hopefully waiting with bated breath that the series does go ahead. I know there has been a lot of confirmation. There's now a vaccine, which will hopefully see a lot of ease given in terms of regulations. But yeah, what an opportunity. I think no one in our change room definitely imagined or envisioned what would happen when we run out at Loftus or at Kings Park or at Ellis Park, and again, stadia that you call home. All of a sudden you just see the sea of red. And it takes you, a couple of seconds to actually realize or take in what is happening in front of your eyes. But that coupled with the incredible give back, and everyone talks about the Lions and the rugby and the great stuff that gets done on the field, but I don't think a lot is actually said about what gets done off the field. And chatting to the likes of Ugo or Brian O'Driscoll, the Lions going into the townships in South Africa, donating not only clothes, rugby fields, making a sustainable impact that doesn't just rest for that time period. It goes on and creates a legacy. And I think, again, alongside the Rugby Unites program, what the SA Rugby Legends are doing, it's things like that that make our game so beautiful. Seeing people that probably would never get into the rural areas in South Africa, making a tangible difference that makes lifelong memories for kids that would definitely not have had that privilege.
It's amazing how the sport, and I've said it before, brings communities together. We're very privileged to be involved in it, aren't we? And Ugo, obviously, because me and Victor aren't qualified to be able to sort of judge this sort of bit, but from a winger's perspective, out of the current players, who do you think is already on the plane?
Well, there's a few. I interviewed Warren Gatland the back end of last season, and we know a lot can change between now and then. But when I asked him in terms of who's definitely on the play from a back three perspective, the first person he mentioned was Anthony Watson. I think he's been incredible form, got a little bit of an injury at the moment. Obviously, he played in the last Lion series down in New Zealand. He played all 3 tests. He's incredibly adaptable, whether it's on the wing or at fullback. So I think someone like him, I'd be surprised to not see him on that plane. His age profile, his test match experience, because the one thing I really learned about that series, it's not just the quality of player you're looking for, it's the quality of personality. Going to South Africa is a hostile place. Like, they back themselves, and sport is the number one thing that unites their nation, and it's rugby. So you have to be able to match up to it mentally as well as physically. Anthony, for me, is the kind of character, personality and rugby player that can do that. Elliot Daly's someone who I really fancy. One, he's incredibly gifted player, but he has what I think very few people in the world have, and that's been able to kick a goal from 50, 60 metres. Reece Hodge is someone that could do that. Mornay Spain broke British and Irish Lions' hearts in doing that from 50, 55 metres. Yeah, I had to bring it up. You've got to be honest about these things. So there's only a few, I think, that currently play the game. And when you're playing at altitude at that high veld, I think Elliot Daly's inclusion can potentially change the way an opposition attack, because if you give away penalties 50, 60 metres out, it could cost you 3 points. So there's a couple of guys that I think could easily make it on the plane, but I have to, of course, when we talk about the Lions, not just be biased and talk about the English. Scots, you got the likes of Stuart Hogg, I think is exceptional, Lee Halfpenny. And from an Irish perspective, guys like Jordan Lama, Stockdale's transition to 15 and still finding his feet. I think Andrew Conway's a brilliant player. So mentioning those, they'd be the guys that I think would have to be within the squad.
Thanks, Hugh. That's great. But you mentioned honesty there. And so, Brian, you probably don't know this, but for a long time, he was always bigging him up, saying he was faster than you. Who actually is or was the
This is like the archetype that you have to ask a winger, but it's the kind of question which you would, if Brian and I were at the same school, during our lunch break, we'd write, right, I'm going to race you from here to here, and you'd have it. So, I mean, Brian, you take it away with the answer.
Yeah, well, I mean, I got Tukutu Ngwenya gassing me on the outside 2007. Ugo had Jongi Nokwe almost troll him in that intercept try in 2009. So I think we'll leave it up to debate, to be brutally honest. I think if Ugo had another 10 meters, Jongi might have actually caught him. It's extremely difficult. I mean, I haven't. I can't remember. Has Ugo run against a cheetah or Airbus A380 at some point in his career?
I was going to say that.
I'll tell you what, I'm not quite one, because a few people say he'll really be in, and you know exactly what it's like in terms of sprinting. There's no better feeling as a winger when you catch an intercept. And Brian, you are absolute master of an intercept. And the moment you catch the ball, you know you're not going to be caught. So you only really sprint or work hard for like 40 metres, and the rest of it you actually enjoy. But going back to your question, Mary, of who was fastest, I think in rugby, and we work in the media now, Brian and ourselves, and we want access to everywhere, changing rooms, dressing rooms. We want to get interviews as people come off the pitch. The one thing that's missing from the game is mystique and mystery. So we won't answer that question, and we'll just allow people to have their own conclusions.
Oogs, I just do want to
I
know,
mean,
just on your wingers that sorry to Battili, on your wingers, someone like Duan van der Merwe that is South African,
Yeah,
has the
yeah.
physicality. Is that not potentially a bolter for the Lions, given that he understands that he understands the South African mindset, that South culture, is probably gonna, I want to say take revenge, but show his actual worth in South Africa. And again, he's just got into that Scottish squad at the moment, has been playing some really good rugby over the course of the last 2 seasons, for Edinburgh. And, that could potentially be, a surprise thing that Warren Gatland could throw in the mix.
Yeah, I think it's a really good shout, knowing the type of coach that Warren Gatland is. Got so much success with Wales and with the Lions, with physicality, and he does like his big physical wingers. You look at the wingers that play for Wales, I've not even mentioned George North. I think Duan van der Merwe is playing some brilliant rugby, and the one thing that sets him apart from everyone else is he's different. If you're going for pace, there's loads of that. There's loads of that. But if you want his added height, is a guy 6'4", big aerial dominance, as well as physicality, he could be an absolute bolter. And if he does go on it, well, you heard it here first.
Brian, I mean, South Africa are flying high at the moment as current world champions. I mean, what is the feeling about the forthcoming Lions tour? Yes, bearing in mind
Victor, I
that
think,
they wouldn't have played any rugby at all until then.
I think the first thing is that we're all hoping that it goes ahead. I think the series, and we've seen the Olympics be postponed. We've seen a lot of other events being cancelled. So I think there is a worry in terms of the timelines of the next couple of months that it goes ahead. Is South Africa going to be undercooked? Is a question on everyone's lips. We've had to pull out of the Rugby Championship because of lockdown restrictions and what this pandemic has caused in South Africa. We've had a number of players leave South African shores post that World Cup, applying their trade in Japan and in the UK now. So how that comes together, the Super Rugby franchises now making the decision to go north, and how that sort of interplays with the progression of a new coach who now hasn't had an opportunity to have sort of year run in, a year and a half, go to that Lions tour. So I think there's a lot of uncertainty. I think, judging by what happened in 2019, I think the biggest thing that will need to suffice is definitely the physicality. I think that is where we know from a South African perspective, not only the Lions, but each and every player, particularly from an English perspective, is going to want to man up physically. And, having not played rugby for 6 months, again, trying to sort of now make sure that you get into a process of developing your players from a match fit perspective. You might not even be able to get the high felt helping us. So yeah, so much uncertainty, and it's looking at trying to get everything in place, which again, given the current pandemic, given the current situation of how things are playing out, there's just so much uncertainty, unfortunately.
Well, so it's going to be quite a level playing field then. I mean, the Lions stand their best chance of winning on South African soil. Brian, I saw your LinkedIn post distributing food parcels in the communities. I mean, that was one of the reasons I got involved in fundraising for Salah. I mean, how has this been received in South Africa?
Yeah, Victor, I think it's difficult. You as a professional athlete, you've given this opportunity to have a platform to make a difference. And at the outset of the pandemic, the Brian Abana Foundation wasn't really focused on food security and providing to those who are so desperately in need. And we've just seen the massive impact this has had on so many people. Coming from a third world country where we all know the difference between the rich and the poor is just so exacerbated that this pandemic really highlighted that disparity. And from my foundation perspective, being able to go along not only with myself but team up with the likes of Siya Kolisi and his foundation, SA Rugby Legends and their Rugby Unites program, and there were just so many sportsmen and women around the country being able to give back. It sometimes felt at times that you're literally a drop in the ocean, and that ocean is extremely vast. But to be able to go into some of the most entrenched areas from a poverty perspective and see the smiles on faces, see the gratitude, see the thankfulness and sincerity by receiving a food parcel. Again, you extremely grateful and privileged to have led a life of privilege, but to be able to see that gratitude, far exceeds any monetary value. And we're going to continue doing it. We're probably doing about another 2,500 parcels over the course of the next month and a half, which is, like I say, we don't want to stop. We know the need is extremely great. You look at the likes of a Margaret Rashford in the UK doing some phenomenal things in terms of providing food, to young schoolgoers, and yeah, hopefully we can continue going. I think this pandemic and its outcome is far from over, and the longer we can continue making an impact, I think the better this world will definitely be.
Well, I've got to thank you both for joining us. So, Ugo, Brian, it's been amazing, and thank you for for supporting the Rugby Unites food distribution program. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, gentlemen. Keep safe.
Take care.
Cheers.
Here's a player memory from Danielle Waterman.
Hi everyone, Nolly Waterman here. I think one of my favourite rugby memories and games to be involved in was in Rotorua in 2017. We travelled to Tor, New Zealand, and we were playing the Black Ferns, and it was the first time that we beat them on home soil for 16 years. What was also super cool was the day before they were painting up the pitch, branding it for the Lions to be playing the New Zealand Maoris after us. And I got to actually paint some of the lines and some of the colours that I think probably ended up on my white shirt afterwards. Incredible game, incredible atmosphere, and awesome to be part of the Lions tour and some of the celebrations after both the games.
The auction is still on, so please use the link on the left-hand side of your screen. You can also make donations on the website. Some items include lot 25, a table for two at the South Africa 2021 preview lunch aboard the Belmont British Pullman luxury train. 5 courses with me and my mates. Lot 30, eve of final test match dinner at the Four Seasons Hotel in Johannesburg for 2 people. Lot 55, an 11-day self-drive through the picturesque garden route in South Africa.
Here is another player memory.
Hello, my name is Paul Wallace, and my favourite rugby memory is the British and Irish Lions tour in 1997. It was the first professional Lions tour against the world champion Springboks. What a wonderful bunch of players I got to play with, and great management. The players all came from the amateur era, albeit were very professional in that time. But this first professional tour, we certainly were amateur when it came to off the pitch activities. It was wonderful rugby played, great socialising, and the test series in particular, as huge underdogs to go and win the first test convincingly, and the second test by bloody mindedness, teamwork, and just dog and grit to get there. Of course, with a little bit of class from Jerry Guscott, the unlikely drop goal expert, which he still hasn't let us forget about. What wonderful memories.
Our next player has a reputation as one of the best inside centres. 109 caps for the Springboks, captained his country on 37 occasions. He has 2 Tri-Nations titles, played in 2 World Cups, winning in 2007, and defeated the British and Irish Lions in the 2009 series.
This player has 65 caps, winning 3 Grand Slams, played in 3 World Cups, 3 Lions tours, and winning the series in Australia and South Africa.
Let's welcome Jean de Villiers and Jeremy Clayton Guscott. Hi, guys.
Hey.
Hello, boys.
Hi.
Right, we'll get straight in. I never thought I'd be able to call you a rookie, Jerry, but your first Lions tour was in 1989. What was your standout memory?
Rookie Lions tour, yeah. How old were you, Mersey, in 1989?
Oh my goodness, 9 years old.
Yeah, I bet you were glued to it, weren't you? No, I fortunately got the shout because Will Carling, they so shin splint, so that allowed me to play for England in May, and as a consequence of that, Carling pulled out of the Lions tour as well, and McGeechan thought, well, let's give this young kid a bit of a go. I think I was 23 before the tour, 24 on the tour, and I went with all these guys that I had no idea what they were like, other than watching them play on Six Nations. So I got to know, the Scottish, the Welsh, the Irish better than I got to know my teammates probably 6 months, 7 months later. But yeah, it was a great tour, weird tour. I mean, not my standout memory, but my memory of that tour was it was an amateur era. So we actually, John Jeffrey, the Scottish flanker, he was like the fundraiser. He's one of the fundraisers. So he bought all these plain white shirts. Can't remember which city we were in, and he got some logos and stuff and printed onto those t-shirts, and we all signed them. So I had a squad shirt and we all signed them, and he got all that printed out. And it were a dirt tracker, so if you weren't playing that game on a Saturday or Wednesday, you were outside stadium selling t-shirts. to go into our tour kitty to raise money for us to go out on the beers and have some food and go out for meals, and just the tour kitty. And that was the days of amateur rugby, and those are the sort of things we did. So other than the games, the memories for me are doing silly little things like that you had to do to raise money.
And that's the best bit of it, isn't it? Those memories stay with you forever. But then 8 years later, and obviously the Lions are returning back to South Africa, but everyone remembers that moment for the goal you dropped. That drop goal is synonymous in '97. Can you talk us through it?
It got to me. I kicked it. 3 points. We won the series. Thank you very much. No.
I mean, I remember exactly where I was. I was in Shula Joe's, my bar on the King's Road, watching it and watching the drop goal go over and jumping up in jubilation. Yes, we won! And then went, oh no, we will never hear the last of this. But I was very happy for you, Joe. It was an awesome moment.
It wasn't that bad. It was kind of there were tense games. It was we went to Cape Town. I don't think the South Africans, certainly the journalists, didn't give us much of a chance. We played that game really, really well. We came, I think we were the strongest side in the end. We came back in that last 15, 20 minutes really strong and scored a couple of tries. But the nerves were right up for that second test in Durban, because that was the opportunity to put it away and get it done. And I think the nerves got the better of the Lions side, because the South African side were brilliant. They were scoring tries left, right and centre. But we're giving away easy, silly penalties. And Neil Jenkins, who was just metronomic in his goal kicking, was bang, 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 penalty after penalty, and kept us in the game. And then we had a moment pretty much in our half where, weirdly, stupidly, I don't know what, I got involved in a ruck. And I managed to win the ball at this breakdown, which is unheard of. But it's there on YouTube. If you don't believe me, you can see it. And Keith Wood fly hacks the ball downfield, and it gets pretty much to the box 22. It's kicked into touch. It's our line out, and from that line out, there are a couple of drives, and it sort of ends up with me outside in the outside half position. Dawson, I can see he's got the ball because Greg has taken it in. Gibbs has taken it in, and there's only me and a couple of others left. And I can see Dawson. He gets the ball and he kind of looks up and almost like, really? What's he doing there? And then I kind of look to the outside, and there's only a couple of people out there, and Austin Healy happens to be one of them. Well, there's no way he's going to get the ball, not a chance. So Dawes passes the ball out to me, and there's only one thing you can do. It wasn't pre-planned. It wasn't a move. It was just an instinctive. Let's drop the ball. Let's get the 3 points. Let's get into the lead. Let's make South Africa chase the game. And literally, it was. I will say myself, it was sweetly struck. I mean, it wasn't like one of those wafty, whiffy ones. It went end over end. It was going up nicely, and as soon as it was one of those, Vic, you know what it feels like. It's one of those where it leaves your boot and you just know it's done. It hits, and through it went, and then everyone's got to hug me, kiss me, a couple of high fives, and all I'm doing is go, boys, we've still got 3 minutes, man. Let's just run. We got to defend. We got to defend for the series, and lucky enough, we did. And it's just one of those moments. It happened. I'm very pleased it happened. There's a lot of drinks and a lot of dinners and lunches on the back of it, which is gratefully received as always. But we've all played rugby at high levels, and which you all appreciate. whether you're winning a Rugby World Cup, a Grand Slam, a domestic championship. When that final whistle went, it was a really strange emotion. My first emotion was relief. And it's not a funny, there's no funny side to this. It's literally, wow, do you know what? We've done it. We've absolutely done it. And then those are the first few seconds you have, relief of winning it. And then you go on and flip and celebrate big time. But it's really weird how we have that. Well, I certainly did. I'm not sure how everybody else felt about your moments, but it's kind of like, it was just a sense of relief. Thank goodness we've done it.
Fantastic. It was a very famous victory. Going on to John. I mean, you played in the victorious 2009 series for the Springboks against the Lions. What was your highlight?
Yeah, thanks, Victor. I think I want to go back to '97 first when Jerry played, because with all the elation and celebration from a Lions point of view, I was a young 16-year-old still at school, watching, and I hate to say it to him because we've done some work together as well, but looking at it, Jerry Guscott, amazing player at that stage. I'm playing centre as well, and then he kicks that drop goal and absolutely breaks my heart. But he's such an unbelievable player that I need to look up to him. I suppose in a way it just shows the quality of or the difference between world-class players and non-world-class players. Being able to do something instinctively like that, kick a drop goal, you win a very important series. So for me to have been, to have seen that, because that was really my first taste of the Lions. Prior to that, South Africa, in the apartheid era and all of that, we weren't really that much exposed to the Lions. When they came over in '97, and I was at the first test match at Newlands, experiencing all of that, you kind of fall in love with this new brand, the Lions brand that you now suddenly see playing. And then, being selected for the '09 squad to actually represent South Africa against the Lions was huge for me. So playing in those first two test matches, and I still recall the first test match was in Durban. And obviously playing in South Africa, you expect a majority South African supporters. So we're playing this game, the build up towards the first test match, we world champions. We run out at Kings Park in Durban, and it's just a sea of red. And I think in a way it really motivated us, because we really started that game with like a house on fire, got a decent lead and won the game. But I suppose the highlight of that game, and it's a pity Ugo's not on the call tonight, but the tackle on him, I was a bit lucky to make that tackle and avoid a try being scored. But Mornay Stein's kick in that second test match, an absolutely brutal test match, and the kick, after the hooter went, and just again, you talk about hitting it sweetly, Jerry. Mornay Stein with that winning kick was just unbelievable. So I'd say that was my highlight.
Thanks for that, John. Well, because of the sort of the past that's really hurting and making me want to cry, we'll get straight into the future. Jerry, your thoughts on key Lions players for this up and coming tour?
Wow, crumbs! In this day and age, it's quite easy to forget about rugby, isn't it? It's in this COVID era. But key Lions, well, one springs to mind immediately is the Englishman, second row, Maro Itoje. He seems to have been a talisman since he strapped on his boots and started playing for the Saracens first team. He's gone from there, winning domestic leagues, European championships. He goes into England, they win championships, Grand Slams. He gets in the Lions squad. They have a drawn series against New Zealand, of all places, and of all teams. The guy is a talisman, and I mean, he's a fierce competitor. And look how fiercely contested the second row is in world rugby. It's one of those positions where, who do you decide? Who do you decide? Who's the best in the world in that second row? There's so many good world-class players to choose from. But I think his all-court game probably puts him just behind like Brodie Retallick at their very best. But I'm sure, that loads of people would disagree with that. But he's young, He's got an energy and a fitness that is, high level, very world-class, superior. He can get over a defender and jackal. He's tough there. He's decent running onto the ball as well. Maybe there's probably an area he might be able to improve, to be more aggressive in his running, to be more figure, to be more known as a runner and a catcher. But I guess with his size and bulk, that's going to be challenging. But he reads the game really well, and he gets on other players' nerves. He gets on the opposition's nerves by, his long arm, his long reach. He's annoying, and so he gets on the opposition's nerves. So for me, he is a key player and will be a key operator in that series next year.
I mean, Jerry, do you think he should be made captain? I mean, who would be your choice of captain?
Do you know what? We've been talking about them in the last month or so with different people, and my immediate thought was Alan Wynne-Jones, and then people kind of just put me away with that, and I was quite surprised because he's still, I think, with the little amount of rugby played at the moment, I think he could be quite. It could be very influential, but then people said, a tour, the amount of matches you got to go through, will he last? So, aside Alan Wynne, Morrow up there, and then you look at the other countries and nations, and Sexton, is I'm not sure whether he'll actually make the tour. Will he last the tour? He's quite injury prone. Stuart Hogg from fullback, not really. I don't think for great position aside from. And Farrell possibly at 10, but I prefer Owen Farrell playing at 10, doing what he does at 10 or 12. Although for me, there's better 12, there's better inside centres than Owen Farrell that can go on that. So Farrell is picked at 10, probably the best 10. I wouldn't put him as captain. My line saw there's better people than me that selected the side, and I always go with Ian McGeechan. He liked his captain to be in the forward, so I would go Morrow or possibly Alan Wynne-Jones.
I mean, in South Africa, set the scene again. I think this is the third time they've been reigning world champions and then invite the Lions over. But obviously with COVID, there's not the rugby championship. Jean, are lots of the boys going to come back and play in that because they're spread all over the world at the moment? Are South Africa going to be underdone? Who are the players to watch out for, and what's going on in South Africa?
Yeah, well, I think there's definitely the risk that they will be underdone. It's quite a unique situation that you win the World Cup and your next game might just be your first test against the Lions. So it's not an ideal way to start your coaching career as well, because Jacques Nienaber has taken over as head coach of South Africa. Now you've got the mantle of being Rugby World Cup champions, but here's an easy 3 tests against the Lions for you to be introduced into the world of coaching. So that's tough. But, with Jacques and with Rassie Erasmus still involved, they'll be proactive with that. I'm sure that there will be a couple of test matches be put in place prior to this. Who that will be up against, I don't know. But that is the one risk, that they will be underdone. Can you do anything about it at this stage? You can't. So it is what it is, and you need to make the most of it to be as well prepared as possible. And having access to the majority of all the players that participated in the World Cup and that is still active, I think that is important to be successful, because you won't have the time to really, build a lot of new stuff, to introduce a lot of new stuff to the structure, or a lot of new stuff to the structure or to new players. So you need to rely on what has been done previously. In terms of the players, I think 2 players that are really key to being successful would be Dwayne Vermeulen. Firstly, I think he's just the kind of player that he plays in such a way where it's just, he encourages his teammates, and he just says, follow me, follow my actions. And I think he really is a key player for the Boks, just from a physical point of view, to really set the tone, and a world-class player. Along with him, Andre Pollard. So, your general in the team, your main decision maker. He's off injured at the moment with the ACL injury. So it'll be touch and go for him in terms of, I think he'll be fit, but it's being able to be at a standard where you can compete against the best in the world, against the Lions. So if he doesn't make it, then it really does leave a bit of a void. And it's still debatable then take charge of the Boks backline and who will be the next general. So those two players, I think, will be key for South Africa to be successful.
It's going to be an unbelievable tour, and so I'm going to stop you there. Thank you so much for joining us, John, Jerry, and thank you for supporting the Rugby Unites food distribution program. It means a lot.
Thanks, guys.
Pleasure.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Thanks, guys. Hope to see you in SA.
Oh yeah, we'll be there. Our auction closes at 9 p.m. So please use the link on the left of your screen. Donate, bid, every penny counts. Thank you to all the players who contributed. Thank you to all our sponsors. And thanks to you all for joining us this evening. Thank you and good night.